Good evening. By some clocks, it's 7 o'clock. And we have two meetings tonight. The Cunningham Town Board will be followed by a meeting of the Urbana City Council. I would like to call the meeting of the Cunningham Town Board to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Okay, Mayor, but I think the first thing we need to do with Township is a public hearing on their budget.
Oh,
Yeah, there is a public hearing.
there's a public hearing? I didn't have it on my agenda here. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll start with a public hearing on the Cunningham Township budget. Is there anyone who wants to comment on the budget? Don't all speak at once. I guess there is no one who wants to speak, so I will close the hearing. Okay? All right, now, back to the Cunningham Town Board. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Madigan?
Here.
Ms. Marlin?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Smythe? Mayor Pressing.
Here. The first item is the minutes of the previous meeting, May 6th, 2013.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. And we have a new supervisor here, Michelle Mayall. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you.
How long have you, when did you get sworn in?
May 20th.
May 20th,
Mhm.
okay. So we're next at committee to verify the bills. Michelle?
June bills that include May interim checks. Town fund is $49,496.65. The general assistance fund is $68,746.09.
Okay, are there any questions about the bills? Is there a motion?
I'll
Mo-
second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Dennis Roberts. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Reports of officers. Do you have a report, Michelle?
No.
Okay. Petitions and communications. I have one from Carol McCusick.
I'm trying to remind people that the annual meeting of electors that is for Cunningham Township doesn't have a website, and at least there might need to be some. It's kind of tricky because if that's a body of its own, it should take the initiative for its own website, which means, like waiting till another annual town meeting is coming up and having it, making sure that such an agenda item gets put on that, or finding out how to have a special meeting of electors. But as it is, you don't know the law that pertains to that, and you don't have any place to look at the minutes. And the minutes were approved April 16th, this just passed, that I think have a kind of major error, some major errors in them, and I think that there just wasn't anyone there one of the things that was that Carol Elliott said was to make sure that you evaluate whether if you start something you're able to keep it up, but in terms of when you would need to think of a way to explore the the need for and feasibility of having a website for those things that, you know, you expect in the Open Meetings Act, to have a place you can find the archived minutes and, like, for example, if they made their own public comment law for that body, they would have it posted at their website, and agendas in advance of the meeting. So that was one point. I guess that's all I'm thinking of for this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the town board? Okay, we will move on. Unfinished business, discussion of consolidated social service funding. Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Clerk, I'm going to step out just for a second because of stated conflict on this issue.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the fact that you have less money than you originally thought?
Because we lost some Carl money that had to be taken out of the budget after the tentative budget was done, we lost $131,612 at the township from Carl. So $65,806 of that had to be cut from general assistance. And then out of the town fund administration, a fourth, which is $32,903, had to be cut, and then the same amount, the $32,903, out of the assessor's budget. So that is why the social service grant amount was lowered.
Did you lower it by 65,000? Or
No, 35.
35,000.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's why it went from 100,000 to 65.
Okay. Any questions for Michelle? Diane.
So how does that impact the total available for the social service funding pool?
65,000 is available in the social. With the city.
What I did was just reduce mine by 35,000.
So the total is 265 instead of 300?
Well, the way I did mine was that I looked at what was spent this year, and it was 285. So I took 35,000 off of that and just allocated 250. But that's something we can talk about. Eric?
Maybe I'll just make a comment, because last year also people came in with some different total amounts. So as we aggregate those, what I would propose to do, unless people want to do that differently, what I would propose to do is, when we have different people have different total amounts, I will, and we have decided on a total amount for the budget, then I will make adjustments by changing those amounts proportionately, and then put those in the averages. Now, there was one case last year where doing that resulted in an individual recommendation for more than the agency had asked for, and then I capped it, the recommendation of that individual. So essentially, I'll do those kinds of manipulations so that I honor the intent of each person who put in their individual nominations, but then adjust the actual dollar amount to the total budget that we have. And that always comes out, and that process comes out with some incredibly round numbers, or incredibly not round numbers, like $63.32 or something. And so then I'll round that off. I'll round things off to the nearest 50 or the nearest 100 in a way that the whole thing comes out right. So if that sounds appropriate, that would be what I would propose to do in the end game.
Dennis?
Well, I'm certainly willing to adjust my numbers for Eric and the rest of the board if I know what the final amount that we're actually going to be spending is. And so as soon as we know that, I'd be happy to cut my numbers down to fit the.
I think we have to decide what the total number is. We started out with 300,000, and things have gotten worse since then. So I think that's going to require some discussion.
Whatever the number is, I'm happy to make my adjustments.
Okay.
Mayor, what do you think is the right procedure for deciding on that amount? We don't have an action item on the social service spending on the agenda
We
tonight.
have discussion of social services on the city council agenda.
Okay.
And it's right here on unfinished business on the Cunningham Town Board.
So we can,
We
it'll
can
be,
talk about it.
so it'll be appropriate for us to actually make a decision tonight during that discussion?
I think so.
Okay.
It won't be a final decision because the budget won't be adopted until June 17th, but we could get a working number. Anyone else?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yeah, I would suggest that we work with the 265 number. I know we only spent 285 last year, but we also we had a special summer program that used some of that money and so on. So we had some uses of the money that was left over. We do have some new programs that we'd like to fund this year. So if at all possible, I'd prefer to work from 300,000. I'd love us to stay with 300,000 if you can find the money, and for the moment, just simply accept that $35,000 less is coming from the township. So that has 265 in my mind, not 250 as you were using, and so. But I think the township is more impacted by property tax caps and whatever, and we probably just need to accept that they will have less money, and if we can make it up in the city budget, we should do it there.
Anyone else?
I'll just make a comment that depending on what the Champaign City Council does tomorrow, they might wind up with $1.1 million that they haven't decided what to do with. It might be a great time for them to say that they ought to step up to the plate on this.
Well, they didn't ask us.
That never stopped it.
Okay. All right. Under new business, we have a resolution authorizing certain individuals to sign checks in the absence of the township supervisor or the town clerk.
Move approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Smythe, was that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Then we have a resolution authorizing certain individuals to have access to bank safe deposit boxes, and that's T 2013-06-002R.
And I'll move approval on that. Seems
Second.
totally reasonable.
Second?
Okay, motion by Dennis Roberts, seconded by Diane Marlin. Any discussion?
I have one question.
Yes.
Who's the certain individuals? I don't understand the certain individual language.
You have them listed?
So
Yes,
it's just
it's
the people
listed on
that
the
are
resolution.
Listed in the resolution.
And to make a correction, that's -005R, not 2.
Oh,
Okay, thanks.
okay. Any other questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. And designation of final amended budget. Are you ready for that, or you want to put that off?
No, I'm ready for it. I had taken the Carl money that we lost out of the amended budget that was previously done. I cut $65,806 out of the general assistance, and then I also cut $32,903 out of town fund administration.
Okay. Did you have a question, Charlie?
Yeah, but that doesn't total the 131,000 that we're losing, so I don't understand why the supervisor's office hasn't cut this, or the assessor's office hasn't cut an appropriate amount out of the budget, his side of the budget.
You would have to ask Dan that.
I thought I saw Dan come in.
I don't have a copy of the budget with me, but I do know that 68% of my budget is salary, and so my leftover office expenses is about $27,000. So it's kind of impossible to subtract $32,000 from my yearly budget. I did save about $20,000 from this fiscal year that I was able to save and that would go back into our town fund.
Well, I think there's some questions, why we've got a proposal here for no salary increases from the supervisor's side, and yet you've got 3% and 4% increases on your side. That strikes me as the first place where we do no increases. There's a savings there. And I really strongly urge you to go back and figure out how to make this budget balance. We can't run with a deficit of 30,000 plus.
Are you suggesting I lay off somebody, or I cut hours, or?
I suggest you work with Michelle and some proposals, and if we need to have a finance committee meeting next week to go over some numbers, we should call for a finance committee meeting of the town board.
Right.
And do that and work between now and then to figure something out. And then have a final vote on this budget in 2 weeks, side by side with the city budget, if we're ready.
Okay. Are you making a motion, Charlie?
Yeah, I'd make that motion, and then we can keep talking about it.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts to defer the Cunningham Town Board budget, the Cunningham Township budget until
Well,
to be voted on finally on July 17th, but to have a report back next week at the Committee of the Whole. Is that correct?
Well, we'd have a finance committee meeting of the town board next week.
Okay, right, I'm sorry. It should be the Town Board. Okay.
I have
Carol?
There was
Yes.
a second already.
Dennis seconded it.
I just wanted to add my voice to this. We've had, all of us have received an email. We had public participation a week or so ago, also looking at some consolidation of the township office. I know the building, Carol Elliott expressed before she retired that there was some massive costs for the building itself, for repairs and things that need to be done in the building, and I think this might be a good time, as opposed to cutting revenue from the much-needed community services, which always seem to get cut first, look at the consolidation recommendation so that we could maybe save money on the building costs, and I know that's a big, big expense to maintain that building for a small staff. And so I think that could also give some good savings if we looked at consolidation. So I would like for us to talk about that part as well in the financial discussion and not leave that off the table at this point.
Dennis?
Yeah. And I would just like to also throw in that considering the state of the township and the city and the expectation of having to make some very serious financial decisions in the future, that it's premature, I think, for this coming year to imagine a 4% and 3% increase in salaries in the office of the assessor. I know that in previous year, the township officers received raises when the city was holding back. I think I don't want to do that twice in a row, so that's another issue that I think ought to be reconsidered by the assessor's office.
Okay, anyone else? We have a motion then to have a special township finance meeting next week, and then to have the budget voted on June 17th. Is that correct, in terms of the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.